Welcome to the Nightmare Zoo, Halloween horror cryptid compilation. Enter a world where monsters hunt, legends breathe, and every scream echoes through the dark. Tonight's stories aren't just tales, they're warnings, so dim the lights, lock your doors, and get ready for a night of pure terror. Happy Halloween from the Nightmare Zoo. If you survive the scares, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It feeds the creatures and keeps the horrors coming. Viewer discretion is advised.
Brutal werewolf attack caught on camera. The night on the Salmon River, Idaho, August 12, 2019. Dale W. Mercer, 38, camped alone on Idaho's Salmon River, the river of no return, beneath a blinding full moon. He'd set up his GoPro to film stars. It filmed the monster. At 1:17 a.m., a shadow peeled from the pines. 7.5 feet tall, matted black fur slick with mist, eyes burning yellow. It sprinted. The GoPro caught the tent ripping open. Dale's scream cut short, then wet snarling. The tripod fell but kept recording. The creature dragged him into the moonlight. Claws raked his chest, peeling skin from sternum to pelvis. Blood arced silver in the light. It bit his left arm and shook bones snapping like dry timber. Half conscious, Dale stabbed it in the eye with his fillet knife. It howled a sound that spiked the audio, then backhanded him into the bank. Ribs shattered, teeth shattered, but headlights appeared upstream. The beast froze, then vanished. Dale crawled to the road, dragging his severed arm through mud and gravel. Found at dawn, he was in septic shock, with over 60 wounds and bite marks, showing both fangs and human-like incisors. Embedded in his femur, a single black hair. DNA matched no known animal. The GoPro footage leaked. In the final frame, as it flees, the creature's eyes glow intelligent, watching the camera. Officials called it a coyote attack. Locals know better. The Nez Perce have warned of Luda, the river walker, for centuries, a spirit that hunts under the full moon. Dale survived, but lost his arm, his voice, and his mind. He now lives in a VA facility, catatonic every full moon. And every August 12th, rangers find fresh claw marks on the riverbank, right where the camera fell. The Wendigo of Algonquin Peak. We came to the Adirondacks looking for missing hikers. Locals warned us not to stay past sundown, but orders were orders. By dusk, fog poured through the trees like smoke from a burning graveyard. The first sign was the smell, rot, meat gone wrong. Then the cold hit, not weather cold. Something else. The forest died around us. No birds, no sound. Just a constant crunch in the snow that wasn't ours. Torres froze first. Do you hear that? It was like bones clicking together, far off, steady. Then a scream, human, raw, split the air. We found it 5 minutes later. What was left of the missing hiker hung 20 feet up in a pine, ribs spread like wings, skin stripped clean from the chest. Steam rose from the meat. And in the snow below, hoof prints, but not deer, too wide, too human. Then came the rattling breath. Behind us, the Wendigo stepped out from between the trees. Its skull was that of a rotting deer, cracked, yellowed, with black sinew still clinging. Antlers like jagged knives scraped the branches above it. Flesh hung from its ribs, wet and moving, as if it was still digesting what it had eaten. It tilted its skull, sniffing. The sound of bone grinding echoed like a scream. Torres fired first. The thing moved before the echo faded. It was on him, claws ripping through his parka, spine snapping like a stick. Blood sprayed across the snow, black in the moonlight. I ran. I heard it follow, the thud of hooves, the whisper of antlers slicing air. I stumbled through the trees, breath freezing in my mask. When I looked back, it was crawling fast, dragging that rotting skull through the snow, tongue like a blade licking the air. By dawn, rescue teams found nothing but torn gear and a line of footprints that ended halfway through the clearing, as if the thing just vanished. The forest is quiet again. But every winter, another teen disappears. And when the wind howls down Algonquin Peak, it sounds like laughter through broken teeth. Caught on camera, the creature that hunts trick-or-treaters. Halloween night in Hollow Creek was supposed to be fun, until the recordings surfaced. At first, it looked like a normal suburban street. Pumpkin lights glowing, kids laughing, plastic fangs flashing under street lamps. But the dashcam footage told a different story. Around 7:47 p.m., a black SUV rolled past a group of trick-or-treaters in cheap monster masks. The driver, a local dad, had installed a dashcam just in case. It was that camera that caught the shape crawling out from between the houses. It was tall. Too tall. Its limbs moved like they were jointed wrong, folding backward as it scuttled across the lawn. The kids didn't see it. They were busy checking their candy bags. But the camera saw everything. The glint of wet teeth under the streetlight. The slick trail it left behind as it crawled toward them. One girl dropped her lollipop and turned. Her costume wings fluttered. She froze. Then the thing stood upright. Its face, if it had one, was a hollow mask of pale skin stretched over bone. It leaned forward and opened its mouth wider than a human jaw could go. The video cuts out there for 5 seconds. When it comes back, the street is empty. The candy bags are still on the curb. A single shoe lies in the road, soaked dark red. The dad never made it home. His car was found still running, door open, dashcam blinking red. Police released one frame to the news before pulling it back for investigation. In the image, you can see the creature mid-lunge, half in shadow, something between a man, a ghoul, and a starving animal. Locals call it the Halloween stalker. Every October 31st, someone says they see it, crawling between decorations, peeking through windows, always hunting the last kids still trick-or-treating after dark. If you watch closely enough, you might catch it too, just a flicker in the dark, behind a row of jack-o'-lanterns. But don't go looking for it, because it's always looking back. Dashcam caught a Texas dogman attack. The footage was never supposed to go public. It started like any other night, an empty Texas highway, the hum of tires on asphalt, and the steady blink of the dashcam light. Deputy Harlan was on patrol, 2:47 a.m., somewhere between Denton and Bowie. The air was thick with dust, the moon low, the fields stretching endless on both sides. Then something ran across the road. At first, it looked like a coyote too fast to see clearly. But when it stopped and turned toward the headlights, the body wasn't right. It stood upright. The head was too large, too long. Its shoulders rolled like a man's, but the fur matted, black, dripping shone like oil under the lights. Jesus Christ, Harlan muttered, hand going to his gun. The dashcam caught everything. The creature stepped closer, eyes catching the beam. They weren't glowing, they reflected, like an animal's. It tilted its head, sniffing, and then dropped to all fours with a sound like breaking bones. It charged. The cruiser rocked as claws slammed against the hood. Metal shrieked. Harlan fired through the windshield, 3 rounds, dead center, but the thing didn't fall. It tore the door, open like foil. The last few seconds of the video are Chaos Harlan screaming, the camera shaking, blood hitting the lens, then silence. When backup arrived, the car was in a ditch. No sign of Harlan. The driver's door was bent backward, like something had peeled it open from the outside. Deep claw marks ran across the hood, 4 on one side, 5 on the other. The dashcam was still recording. At the 1842 mark, something moves in the reflection of the windshield. A shape crawling on the tree line, watching. 2 long arms, long snout, still dripping. The sheriff's office ruled it an animal attack. But the official report never mentioned the human footprints leading into the woods. Barefoot, massive, fresh, and at the end of the footage, Right before the camera dies, there's a sound under the static, a growl that almost sounds like words low, guttural, broken English. Mine. Devil's Hollow. They heard it scream. Then it spoke their names. The first scream tore through Devil's Hollow like a dying animal, raw, wet, and wrong. Not human, not animal. Something hungry. Ranger Torres froze, flashlight beam slicing the snow-dusted pines. Beside her, Mendez lowered his rifle, breath pluming in the -20 air. "That wasn't a coyote," he whispered. Then it screamed again higher, sharper, ending in a wet crack, like bones snapping in a sack of meat. They found the first body 5 minutes later. What was left of the missing hiker hung 20 feet up in a pine, ribs ripped open, skin stripped clean from the chest down. Blood dripped in slow, black ropes onto the snow below. No head, just meat on a tree. "Jesus Christ," Mendez choked, backing away. That's when the whisper came, not from the trees, not from the wind, from right behind them. Mendez. His name hung in the air, guttural, wet, spoken in a voice like grinding teeth and tearing sinew. Mendez spun, rifle up, but the thing was already on him. It dropped from the branches like a nightmare-given bone, 7 feet tall, matted fur crusted with ice. And gore, its head a rotting deer skull fused to a gaunt, emaciated frame. No tongue, just a jaw hanging open, revealing blunt, red-stained teeth. One clawed hand shot out, grabbed Mendez by the throat, and slammed him into a pine. His head burst like overripe fruit skull, caving inward with a sickening crunch, brain matter splattering the bark in steaming ribbons. His legs kicked once, then went still. Torres screamed, fumbling for her sidearm, but the creature turned. Its hollow eye sockets locked onto her, and it spoke. Torres. Her blood turned to ice. It knew her name. Not shouted, not growled, spoken, like it had tasted it before. She ran. Branches lashed her face. Snow swallowed her boots. Behind her, no footsteps, just the wet drag of something heavy through the drifts. And that voice, whispering her name again and again, closer each time. Torres. 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 She dared a glance back. It was crawling on all fours now, limbs bending in impossible angles, dragging Mendez's still twitching arm behind it like a leash. Its deer skull head tilted, jaw working silently. Then it launched. She felt the claws before she saw them ripping through her parka, her ribs, her chest. Hot blood flooded her mouth as she was pinned face up in the snow. The creature loomed over her, breath steaming from its hollow skull. It leaned down and whispered, soft as a lover, "Stay." Her last sight was its teeth blunt, stained, endless descending into the dark. Dogmen in the woods that nobody survived. They called it a backcountry shortcut, a trail through Michigan's Huron-Manistee forest that barely anyone used anymore. Locals warned us not to take it. They said the woods out there weren't right, that something hunted after dark. We left. We didn't laugh long. By dusk, the trees closed in, tall and silent, the light dying faster than it should have. The air felt thick, heavy, like the forest didn't want us there. Our phones lost signal miles back, and the map app froze. Jake cracked a joke to cut the tension. Nobody smiled. The first sound was distant, a crunch, like something big stepping on dry bone. We froze, then another. It circled us, just outside the light of our flashlights. A branch snapped behind me, close enough to feel the vibration in the ground. I turned. Nothing. Only the sound of slow, wet breathing. Then it hit Jake. I didn't see it. I heard it. Flesh tearing, the thud of something heavy slamming into the dirt. The flashlight spun away, catching a flash of movement. A figure, low and broad-shouldered, covered in mud and hair matted with blood. Not a man, not an animal. Something between. The sound it made wasn't a growl. It was a guttural tearing of air, the sound of rage itself. It ripped Jake apart like meat. The woods exploded with screams, mine, his, it didn't matter. The others ran, crashing through the brush, but it didn't chase all of us. It didn't need to. I hid under a fallen log, every breath shallow, my hands shaking so hard I could hear my own pulse. I saw it drag what was left of Mark back toward the trees. Its limbs moved wrong, too long, too fluid. Bones cracked as it bent down, tearing him open. The sound of chewing echoed in the dark. Wet, final. By dawn, the forest was quiet again. The kind of quiet that means everything's dead. The search teams found nothing but shredded deer, blood in the soil, and claw marks gouged into the trees, deep enough to break bark and bone. They say animals don't do that. They say nobody survived. They're right. And if you ever hear that slow, wet breathing in those woods, don't run. It's already behind you. Dogman tracks your every step. You told yourself it was just the wind, just branches snapping in the cold, just your boots crunching snow. But then you heard it the other crunch. Half a second behind yours. You stopped. Silence. You turned your flashlight toward the trees. Nothing but pines, snow, and shadow. Your breath fogged the beam. You laughed nervous, shaky. Get it together, you muttered. Then it came again. Crunch, closer. You ran. Boots slammed into frozen earth, lungs burning. Behind you, no footsteps, just a low, wet huffing, like something breathing through a throat full of blood. And then, a click, like claws on stone. You glanced back. It stood between the trees 7 feet tall, matted black fur slick with ice, eyes glowing yellow in the dark. No snarl, no growl, just watching, waiting. You froze. It tilted its head and took a step, not toward you, with you. Every time you moved, it mirrored you. Same pace, same stride, always just beyond the edge of your light. You'd stop. It stopped. You'd turn, it turned. You couldn't lose it, couldn't outrun it. It wasn't chasing you. It was herding you, deeper into the woods, away from the road, away from help. Your radio crackled, static, and a voice, your own voice, whispered, "Keep walking." You screamed and threw it. The dogman didn't flinch. It just kept pace. Hours passed. Your legs gave out. You collapsed in the snow, sobbing. The flashlight died. Darkness swallowed you whole. But you still heard it. Crunch, 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 right behind you. You squeezed your eyes shut. "Please," you whispered. "Just kill me." Silence, then warm breath on your neck. And a voice rough as gravel, wet as a wound, spoke your name. Not shouted, not growled, whispered, like it had known you forever. You opened your eyes. It was crouched in front of you now, claws resting on your knees, its snout inches from your face. Saliva dripped from jagged teeth. One yellow eye stared into yours. The other was milky blind, scarred, ancient. It didn't attack. It just waited, because it knew. You were already lost. And in Dead Man's Hollow, the dogman doesn't hunt you. It walks you home. Don't enter the Wendigo Woods. They call it Black Pine Forest, just north of Ely, Minnesota, near the edge of the Boundary Waters. The locals whisper another name, Wendigo Woods. I used to laugh at that. I was a park volunteer that summer, helping the rangers clear storm damage. My name's Mark Halper, and I wish I'd never gone back after sunset. It was late October. The first snow hadn't fallen yet, but the wind had teeth. I went in alone to retrieve a lost generator left by the main trail. The woods were silent, not a single bird, just my boots and the crunch of dead leaves. Then I found the campsite, tents shredded, a cooler ripped open like paper. The snow was stained brown red, frozen in streaks leading deeper into the trees. I thought maybe a bear had gotten in, until I saw the footprints. Long, narrow, and wrong. Toes that ended in sharp gouges. Something was watching me. The trees groaned. A low clicking came from the dark, like bones snapping in rhythm. When I turned my light, I saw it between the trunks. Tall, starved, skin stretched like parchment over bone, eyes burning pale white. Its mouth hung open wider than any human's, packed with shards of teeth. It moved faster than sound. 1 second it was 20 feet away. The next, its claws tore through my jacket. I fired my flare gun, the only thing I had, and the light hit its face. Flesh bubbled. It shrieked, a sound that made the air vibrate. I ran. I could hear it following, not footsteps, but the sound of something crawling through the trees above me. Branches snapped. Blood dripped from somewhere. Mine, maybe not. When I burst out of the woods, I fell onto the highway, screaming. A trucker found me an hour later, frostbitten, covered in scratches and something else. Bits of gray, rotting flesh stuck to my coat. The rangers went back the next morning. The campsite was gone. The snow was clean. No prints, no blood. Just the generator sitting there, humming quietly. They said I imagined it. But every year since, hikers vanish in black pine. Their tents torn, bones found gnawed to splinters. Whatever lives in Wendigo Woods is still hungry. Hell's Farm, the serial killer landlady who preyed on lonely men, and murders of Belle Gunnis. 1900 to 1908. They came by train lonely men with savings, widowers with hope, farmers seeking a fresh start. All answered Belle Gunnis's ads. Widow seeks honest man for farm life and companionship. None left alive. On her Indiana farm, Belle didn't just kill. She harvested. Her first victim was her second husband, Mad Skrenson, found dead in 1900, face blackened, throat swollen. Heart failure, the coroner ruled. Insurance paid $5,000. Then came Peter Gunnis, her third husband. One night, neighbors heard a crash from the kitchen. They found him at the bottom of the cellar stairs, skull crushed, eyes wide with terror. Belle claimed he fell. She collected $3,000, but the real horror began with the suitors. Ray Lampher, her handyman, watched them arrive clean-shaven, nervous, clutching bank books. They'd stay a week, 2, then vanish. Belle told neighbors they'd moved west, but Ray saw the truth. Late-night shopping in the smokehouse. The stench of burning fat. The way Belle fed pork to her pig's meat too lean, too red. One winter, a suitor named John Moe grew suspicious. He confronted her. That night, Ray heard screams muffled by hay bales. At dawn, Belle dragged a burlap sack to the hog pen. The pigs went wild. By 1908, over 40 men were gone, her own children, anyone who threatened her secret. She'd poisoned them with strychnine-laced stew, then crushed their skulls with a meat mallet to be sure. Bodies were dismembered in the root cellar, bones ground in the feed mill, flesh rendered into lard. Her own infants? Smothered in their cribs when they cried too loud. On April 28, 1908, the farmhouse exploded. Neighbors rushed to find it in flames. In the rubble, 3 charred bodies, Belle's 2 youngest children, and a headless woman. But the skull was never found, and Ray Lampher swore, Belle's alive. She faked her death. She's out there still collecting. Decades later, graves were dug up near the farm. Not one, but dozens of human bone skulls with blunt force trauma, femurs sawed clean, ribs charred from fire. Belle Gunnis didn't just kill for money. She turned men into compost. And Hell's Farm? It's still there, quiet, waiting, because somewhere a lonely man just answered an ad. Widow seeks honest man, and the pigs are hungry again. I filmed it hunting me. Then it spoke my name. This isn't a hoax. It isn't a campfire story. My name is Ethan Cole, and I filmed the dogman in the woods outside Cadillac, Michigan, on the night of October 9th, 2017. I still have the footage, but I wish to God I'd never hit record. I'd been hearing screams near my property for weeks long, wet animal sounds that ended like someone choking. So that night, when the rain came down heavy and the woods started howling again, I grabbed my camera and flashlight. I told myself it was a coyote. That lie lasted 10 minutes. The forest was silent when I stepped in. The air stank wet fur, copper, rot. My light caught movement between the trees. Something upright, massive, gray-black fur slicked to its body. I zoomed in and froze. Its eyes caught the beam yellow, almost human. Then it smiled. I swear it smiled. The camera picked up the sound next, a low rumbling growl that vibrated through my chest. Then came the breathing. It was behind me. The footage goes wild there, spinning lights, heavy panting, the crunch of leaves as I bolted toward my truck. But you can hear it following. 4 heavy strides. Then 2. I stopped halfway down the trail, shaking, trying to see if it was still behind me. The forest was empty until my camera glitched. A blur of gray, teeth flashing, claws like knives. It was right there. I fired a warning shot into the air. It didn't run. It just tilted its head and said my name. Ethan. That voice broken, wet, almost human, was caught perfectly on audio. It wasn't playback. It wasn't an echo. It knew me. I ran until my lungs tore. The last few seconds of footage show it standing on the trail under the lightning. 9 feet tall. Hands like a man's, claws dripping red. It watched me leave. It didn't chase. The next morning, I went back with the sheriff. The trail was shredded trees gouged deep, prints the size of dinner plates. They told me it was a bear. But I know bears don't speak. The video's still online though parts glitch now. When the growl starts, sometimes the screen flickers, and my name plays backward in static. I haven't gone near those woods again. But last week, someone or something left a claw mark across my back porch door. Under it, carved into the wood my name. I survived a werewolf attack, Blackwater Falls State Park, West Virginia, October 17, 1987. It was past 2 a.m. when the pounding started. James R. Harlan, a 42-year-old forestry technician, living alone in a remote cabin near Blackwater Falls State Park, thought it was the storm wind slamming branches against the porch. But then came the scratching. Long, slow drags down the front door, like claws testing wood. He grabbed his .30 to 30 Winchester. Go on. He yelled. Silence. Then crack. The door exploded inward. Not kicked. Ripped. Splinters flew like shrapnel. And it stood there, drenched in rain, filling the frame. 8 feet tall. Matted gray fur slick with mud and blood. Eyes burning yellow in the lantern light. Its jaw hung open, dripping saliva thick as syrup, teeth jagged and broken like shattered tombstones. James fired. The bullet hit its chest and stuck. The thing didn't flinch. It laughed a wet, gurgling howl that shook the walls. It lunged. Claws like butcher knives tore through James's flannel shirt, ribs, and lung in one swipe. He felt his own breath bubble out through a hole in his side. The creature pinned him, breath reeking of rotting meat, and bit not to kill, but to taste. Its teeth sank into his shoulder, grinding bone, tearing muscle away in a wet rip. James screamed, but the sound died as the beast shoved its muzzle into his throat and inhaled, sucking the scream right out of him. Miraculously, his hand found the fireplace poker. He drove it upward, under the creature's jaw. It shrieked, a sound like metal tearing and recoiled, black blood spraying the walls. In that second, James rolled, grabbed his rifle, and fired 3 more rounds into its chest. It staggered, then vanished into the storm. Bleeding, lungs collapsing, James crawled 2 miles through freezing rain to the park ranger station. Medics found 37 separate lacerations, a punctured lung, and teeth embedded in his collarbone. Not human, not animal. Enamel too thick. Canines curved like hooks. West Virginia State Police dismissed it as a bear attack, but rangers knew better. For decades, locals spoke of the Blackwater howler, a thing that walks like a man, hunts in storms, and leaves no tracks. James survived, but he never returned to the woods. To this day, on rainy October nights near Blackwater Falls, hikers report a figure watching from the trees, tall, hunched, breathing weightily. And if you listen too long, it whispers your name in a voice that sounds almost human. James Harlan still sleeps with a loaded shotgun, because he knows it didn't kill him that night. It was just tasting. It came out of the woods, the camping massacre. The first screams echoed through the trees just after midnight. There were dozens of people at Pine Hollow Campground that night, families, couples, a few college kids drinking by the lake. The air was cool, the fire pits glowing, and everyone thought the noise was part of a prank. Until the screaming didn't stop. From the forest edge came the sound of branches snapping, heavy ones, as if something huge was pushing through. A camper's flashlight beam caught it first. A shape hunched low, covered in matted, wet fur. Its ribs showed, its arms long enough that the claws scraped the ground. Then it moved. The creature burst into the clearing, faster than anyone could react. It tore through the first tent, ripping it open like paper. People ran in every direction, flashlights jerking wildly. The thing's head snapped side to side, jaws clamping down on whatever it caught, flesh, bone, screams. One man swung a hatchet at it. The blade sank into its shoulder, but it didn't slow down. It howled, grabbed him by the throat, and crushed it in one brutal motion. Blood sprayed across the nearest camper van. The survivors tried to reach the parking lot, but the monster was already there. It leapt onto a car roof, denting it inward, claws raking sparks across the metal. Every time someone moved, it turned and charged. Its eyes caught the light, not glowing, but reflecting like a predator's in the dark. Someone fired a flare gun. The red glow revealed the full horror. Tall, skeletal frame, skin torn in places revealing sinew and exposed bone, long jaw stretched far too wide. It was covered in blood, fresh and old, and every breath it took sounded like something leaking. By dawn, the campground was silent. Tents shredded, campfires still burning, the lake stained red. Rangers found claw marks 10 feet up the trees, cars overturned, and blood trails leading into the woods, but no bodies. Just drag marks. The official report blamed a wild animal attack. But the last person who survived said something different. She'd hidden under a picnic table, watching as it dragged a body toward the trees. Before it vanished into the fog, it turned and looked right at her. And then it smiled. It hides in human skin. The first sign was Mr. Henderson's smile. It was too wide, stretching his features into a taut mask that didn't quite reach his dead, doll-like eyes. He'd wave from his porch, the motion fluid but wrong, like a puppet mastering a new string. I told myself it was grief. His wife had passed months ago. But last Tuesday, I saw it. I was taking out the trash late, the motion-activated floodlight on my shed flickering to life. Mr. Henderson was in his backyard, perfectly still, facing the woods. The light from my yard caught him, and for a split second, I saw his shadow tall, spindled, and writhing with tendrils, a stark contrast to his stooped human form. He turned. The second our eyes met, the smile was back, that terrible skin-stretching grin. He waved. I rushed inside, my heart a frantic drum. I was paranoid, tired. That's what I repeated as I lay in bed, listening to the old house settle. Then I heard it, a soft, wet, tearing sound, like Velcro being slowly, painfully pulled apart. It was coming from outside my window. I dared to look through the blinds. Mr. Henderson was standing on his own lawn, illuminated by his porch light. His hands were at his jawline, fingers digging into the flesh of his own neck. With a slow, deliberate pull, he began to peel his face downward. It wasn't blood that welled up, but a glistening, black, tar-like substance. The skin of his face came away like a rubber mask, collapsing in his hands to reveal a nightmare of pulsating, obsidian flesh and a single, large, milky eye that swiveled in its socket, scanning the darkness. It was looking for something. For someone. The thing that was not Mr. Henderson, and held the limp human skin up to its own face, and began the meticulous process of smoothing it back on, tucking the edges, molding it back into the familiar, kindly visage of my neighbor. It finished, adjusted its smile, and then that single horrible eye swiveled from the woods and locked directly onto me in my second-story window. It knows I saw. It knows I know what lies beneath the skin. This morning, it waved from its porch, its smile a little wider, a little more desperate. And my own mother just knocked on my bedroom door, her voice sweet, asking if I'm okay. But her words are slightly off, her cadence just a half-beat wrong. And when I didn't answer, I heard it the faintest, softest, wet tearing sound from the other side of the door. Midnight graveyard visit. A terrifying encounter. The dare was simple. 1 hour in Blackthorn Cemetery after midnight. No phones, no lights. Just 4 friends, a flashlight, and a bad idea. Dylan led the way through the rusted gate, its hinges screaming into the still night. The air was damp and smelled like iron. Something about it felt alive. They walked between crooked gravestones. The fog crept low, curling around their ankles like smoke. Then came the sound, heavy breathing. Not wind, not an animal they'd ever heard. Slow, ragged, wet. Mia whispered, "Someone's out here." Then the flashlight flickered. The beam swept across a broken mausoleum. Fresh blood streaked the marble, leading to an open grave. Inside, the coffin had been torn apart, not dug up, ripped open. A deep growl rolled out of the darkness, vibrating through the ground. Dylan turned the light slowly and froze. It stood behind the headstones, enormous, hunched, muscles bulging under thick black fur glistening with blood. Its arms were long, the hands ending in curved, bone-colored talons that scraped deep grooves into the stone as it moved. The chest heaved like a bellows, ribs showing through stretched hide. The werewolf's face caught the light, a twisted fusion of wolf and man. Its muzzle dripped red. Its nostrils flared as it sniffed the air, breath steaming in the cold. Then it looked straight at them and smiled. Tyler shouted, "Run!" The beast charged. The ground shook. It hit Jess first, lifting her like a rag doll and tearing her apart before she could scream. Blood sprayed across the tombs. Dylan fired a flare. The burst of light turned the scene crimson. The creature stood upright now, towering above the crosses, snarling through jagged fangs. Each exhale came out as a guttural roar. Mia and Tyler ran for the gate, boots slipping on the mud. The werewolf slammed into a stone angel, shattering it as it bounded after them. Tyler fell. One massive swipe sent him spinning into the gravestones. He didn't move again. Dylan grabbed Mia, dragging her through the fog. Behind them, the creature stalked on all fours, its claws raking the dirt, breath echoing through the graves. It didn't rush now. It enjoyed the chase. When police arrived the next morning, they found only blood, claw marks, and shredded earth. The graves were empty. The Blackthorn werewolf had feasted well. The forest was dead silent, except for the low hum of the camera. Jack panned his flashlight across the trees. catching the pale fog that hovered between the branches. "Keep it steady," he muttered, sweat sliding down his neck. They said it was seen here, tall, humanoid, glowing eyes. The group had driven out deep into Devil's Hollow to film proof of a monster in the shadows. Their channel thrived on fake scares and special effects, but tonight, something felt different. Mia froze. "Did you hear that?" A deep rumble came from behind the tree line, low, animalistic, vibrating through the dirt. A beam of her flashlight trembled as she pointed it toward the sound. For a moment, there was nothing but darkness. Then, two massive shapes reflected back. Eyes. They weren't glowing with light or like absorbing it. The thing moved fast. Branches cracked. A blur shot through the fog. A camera jolted as something slammed into the side of the clearing. Jack swung the light toward it, revealing a hulking creature crouched low to the ground. Its flesh looked long stretched, patchy fur over raw muscle. Its face twisted somewhere between a wolf and something human, with jaws that stretched too far and teeth slick with blood. It let out a snarl that made every bone in their bodies vibrate. Mia screamed, "Run!" They bolted for the car, but the creature was already there, hunched over the hood. The camera caught the moment it stood easily 9 feet tall, shoulders wide as a doorframe, claws gouging metal like paper. It lunged forward, smashing through the windshield. The feed shook violently, then cut to static. The next frame recorded by the camera's motion sensor an hour later showed the clearing again. Silent, still, but something was moving at the edge of the frame. The creature, crawling closer. Its mouth opened wide, stretching past what was humanly possible, as if it could swallow the entire lens. Then, darkness. When police found the wrecked car days later, there was no blood inside, just deep claw marks and the shattered remains of the camera still recording the trees. No one ever went back to Devil's Hollow, but sometimes hikers swear they hear heavy breathing behind them, followed by the sound of claws dragging across bark. They found my tent shredded to pieces in the Smoky Mountains. No one's supposed to camp that deep into the back country anymore, but I wanted to prove the local stories were just talk, ranger myths told to scare off tourists. When I reached the clearing, the fog was already thick, wrapping around the trees like wet cloth. The silence didn't feel natural. No birds, no insects. Just breathing. Not mine, something else's. I set up camp anyway. Built a fire. Tried to laugh off the feeling that the woods were watching me. But every few minutes, I'd catch something tall between the trees. I thought it was just shadows, until I saw the antlers. They didn't belong to a deer. Too wide, too jagged. The figure moved wrong. Its limbs too long, its joints bending in ways they shouldn't. I heard bones creak and a low groan, like something mimicking human pain. I stayed awake most of the night, clutching my knife, whispering to myself. Around 3 a.m., the fire died. That's when I smelled it. Rot and copper. Then the sound came. Wet footsteps dragging across leaves. My tent's fabric stretched from outside, a claw pressing against it, tracing slowly from corner to corner. I didn't move, didn't breathe, and it spoke. A rasping voice, broken and hollow, echoing my own words from earlier that night. Just shadows. The entire tent collapsed. I ran blindly through the trees, tripping over roots, branches slashing my arms. Behind me came a sound, bones snapping, skin tearing. It was close. I made it to the old ranger road and kept running until sunrise. I thought I was safe. But when I came back with the rangers the next day, they found my tent, shredded into ribbons, every piece soaked in something dark. No footprints, no animal sign, just deep gouges in the dirt like claws. And hanging from a branch, my flashlight, still flickering. Now they tell hikers not to camp past mile marker 12. They say it's for safety. But every few months, someone ignores the warnings, and every few months, they find another tent, torn to pieces in the mist. Shadows crawl in Halloween fog. The fog rolled in thicker than any Halloween before. It smothered the streets of Hollow's End, swallowing the orange glow of jack-o'-lanterns until they flickered like dying embers. The town was silent, too silent, except for the sound of something crawling beneath the mist. No one had seen it clearly, but everyone had heard it. The slow scrape of claws across pavement, the wet drag of something pulling itself along the ground. They said it came when the fog turned red. Lila didn't believe the stories. She thought the crawlers were just old town tailies' Halloween legends to scare kids. That night, she walked home alone through the dense fog, her breath clouding before her. Streetlights flickered. Somewhere ahead, something moved. A shape hunched low, slithering from shadow to shadow. It wasn't walking, it was dragging itself. Long arms jointed wrong. A head that twitched at angles bones shouldn't allow. Lila froze. The thing stopped too. She could feel it staring at her, though its face was hidden in the haze. The fog pulsed. The lights went out. And then came the whisper right beside her ear. "You shouldn't see what crawls in the fog." She ran. Footsteps echoed behind her, mismatched and uneven, like several creatures moving as one. She stumbled past a house, saw the shapes pressed against its windows, black silhouettes writhing in the mist. They were everywhere now, crawling over fences, slinking through the air vents, climbing walls with broken hands. The whole town screamed. Every door slammed shut, but the fog seeped through cracks and keyholes, bringing shadows that laughed in hollow voices. Lila reached her porch and slammed the door too late. The fog was already inside. Her reflection in the hallway mirror began to move on its own, grinning as its eyes bled black smoke. Outside, the mist churned like a living ocean, shapes twisting and multiplying. The crawlers were no legend. They were the fog itself. As Halloween night ended, the streets of Hollow's End stood empty. Every light was out, every window black. And when the first rays of morning sun broke through, the fog lifted, leaving nothing behind, but hundreds of handprints burned into the asphalt, all pointing toward the woods. The fog will return next Halloween, and the shadows will crawl again. The Beast of Chicago, the horrors of H. Holmes and his murder castle. In the heart of Chicago, during the 1893 World's Fair, stood a 3-story building locals called the Murder Castle. Its owner, Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, was charming, educated, and one of America's first known serial killers. Holmes built the hotel himself, designing it like a labyrinth. Behind every hallway lurked something sinister. Secret doors, soundproof rooms, trapdoors leading to hidden chutes, and gas lines connected to sealed chambers. From the outside, it looked like any other business catering to the fair's visitors. Inside, it was hell. Young women looking for work were his favorite prey. Holmes promised them employment, safety, and comfort. But once they entered the castle, few ever left. He'd lock them inside airtight rooms and watch through hidden panels as they suffocated. Others were gassed, strangled, or starved while he took notes like a scientist. Some victims were taken to the basement, his private workshop of death, where acid vats, dissecting tables, and furnaces waited. He sold skeletons to medical schools under false names, turning human remains into profit. Police later uncovered dozens of bodies, though many were too mutilated to identify. It's believed Holmes killed over 200 people, though he confessed to 27 before his hanging in 1896. His charm fooled everyone. He married multiple women simultaneously, lied constantly, and swindled anyone he could. When detectives finally searched the castle, they found bones, blood-soaked walls, and a stench of decay so thick officers had to flee outside for air. Holmes showed no remorse. His only regret, he claimed, was being born with the devil in me. Even on the gallows, he smiled. The building burned mysteriously. Soon after his arrest, locals said they saw a dark figure walking through the flames, laughing. Today, the site at 63rd and Wallace Street is gone, replaced by a post office. But workers there still whisper that at night, doors slam by themselves, and the scent of burning flesh sometimes drifts through the air. Dr. Henry Holmes wasn't just a killer. He was a monster who built a castle for murder, and the echoes of his crimes still haunt Chicago's South Side. And please help us hit 500 subscribers this week. So hit that subscribe button for us, and visit nightmarezoo.com today. The curse kills at midnight. The people of Cold River, Maine, still whisper about the midnight bells. They say they ring on their own 3 slow tolls, and whoever hears them is dead before dawn. Deputy Mark Halpern never believed the stories, until the night he followed the sound into the woods. The forest was still, but the air felt wrong, too heavy, too thick, like it was holding its breath. He found the old church half buried in vines, its bell tower leaning like a broken spine. The doors were chained, but the chains moved, scraping as if something behind them was breathing. "Sheriff?" Mark whispered into his radio. Static. He heard the first bell. It wasn't loud. It vibrated through his bones, rattling his teeth, echoing in his chest. Then the second bell rang. The forest shuddered. His flashlight flickered, and in that strobe of light he saw figures pale, skin stretched tight, mouths open in silent screams watching from the trees. The third bell tolled. Mark stumbled backward, his radio screeching with distorted voices. "Run, run." He turned and saw his patrol car's lights flash once, then die. When the clock struck midnight, the church doors burst open. Something crawled out. Its hands were black with rot, its eyes hollow pits bleeding darkness. It reached for him, whispering his name, each syllable splitting the air like a knife. Mark fired 3 rounds. The bullets passed through it. The thing only smiled, its jaw unhinging wider than any humans could. The last thing he heard was the 4th toll that should never have existed. At dawn, they found his cruiser still running, headlights cutting through the mist. The seat was soaked with blood. No body, only his badge, melted into the steering wheel. Now, every October, the bells ring again. And every year, someone new disappears when the clock strikes 12. Because the curse doesn't rest. It waits. And it kills at midnight. It was well past midnight when the park rangers got the call. 3 hunters missing in the thick woods near Wexford County. Rumors said someone or something had seen them running from the shadows. 5 rangers drove winding forest roads, headlights cutting through fog that dripped off branches. The air smelled of musk and rot. Their boots squelched in mud. A full moon hidden behind shifting clouds made everything flicker. They found the first body near an old logging trail, torso shredded, ribs exposed, entrails torn and dragging like wet rope behind him. No eyes, no face. The mouth opened in a silent scream. Ranger Torres vomited. Ranger Lee slammed his flashlight to her chest, but the thing didn't care. The howl came then. Low, animal, but with the crack of bone. They followed footprints large, cloven. No, human-footed, but spaced wrong. The toes splayed, long claws ripping into earth as if it walked, then hunted on all 4s. The forest was silent, except for the dripping of blood and the rangers' breaths. Suddenly, something lunged. The dogman vaulted out of the trees, fur-matted, fists huge. It didn't roar. It ripped. Torres' leg torn open, marrow visible. Bone crunched under its grip. Lee fired 5 shots. The dogman staggered, collapsing half its weight on a broken trunk, one eye milky, blood pouring. For a moment, it lay still. They moved to help Torres, but the thing sprang again. Fast, brutal. It crushed his ribs, fist forcing into flesh. The sound, wet, gristle, crack, splash. Lee screamed as the beast tore at his throat, ripping his jaw wide, tearing meat like paper. Only 3 left. Panic. Flashlights dropped. The dogmen bounded between them, ripping gear, clawing flesh. Rangers put up no fight, no chance. I crawled out hours later, blood everywhere. The forest floor looked designed for carnage. The moon came out, full and cruel. Next morning, the helicopter found nothing but shredded uniforms, half-melted radios, and blood-soaked footprints leading deeper into the trees. Hunters, rangers, gone. Now when the wind moans through those woods, some say you'll hear cracking bones, a howl dipped in agony, echoing off dead trees. The fire tower screams at night. The first thing they tell you when you work a fire tower in Black Elk National Forest, South Dakota, is never answer a call that isn't on the radio. It's a rule I broke on my second night. The forest below was dead quiet. No wind, no insects, just the low hum of my generator. Around 1:13 a.m., the phone on the wall rang. It wasn't supposed to. The line was for emergencies only. When I picked up, the voice on the other end whispered, "Get out of the tower." I froze. The voice sounded like mine, strained, breathless, but I hadn't spoken. I looked out the window. The floodlight caught the treetops swaying. Then I saw something move, fast, between the trees. At first, I thought it was a bear. Then it stood up. It was wearing a ranger uniform. My uniform. It waved, slowly. The radio crackled to life. A voice screaming my name. I grabbed the binoculars. That's when I saw its face. The skin looked peeled back, the jaw torn open as if something had tried to crawl out through its mouth. I slammed the door shut and killed the lights. The stairs below creaked, one step at a time. Metal moaning. Whatever it was climbing. I pulled my sidearm and aimed at the trapdoor. My hands were shaking so bad the barrel tapped the railing. And silence. I thought maybe it had gone. Then knock, knock, from underneath the hatch. I fired once. The shot echoed down the stairs, but the knocking didn't stop. It got faster, harder. Then a voice whispered through the floorboards. The same tone from the phone. Get out of the tower. I blacked out. When the morning crew hiked up, they found the door torn off, my rifle bent in half, and blood smeared up the ladder rungs. The report says, animal attack. But animals don't call you by name. And they sure as hell don't wear your face. And remember to hit that subscribe button for us if you don't mind. We would love to hit 500 subscribers by the end of this week. And come claim your cursed merch now at nightmarezoo.com. The howling in the Black Hills. The call came just before dawn. 2 hunters missing deep in the Black Hills. Last seen near a stretch of forest the locals called the Hollow. Search and rescue rolled out fast. 4 of us, including me, radios crackling through the fog. We found the first sign an hour in. A shredded orange vest. Blood soaked into the dirt so dark it looked black. No tracks, just drag marks. Deep gouges like something had crawled on all fours, dragging heavy weight. By noon, the wind died. Even the birds stopped. I called for silence, then we heard it. Low, wet, a growl that didn't echo. Jake took point, flashlight cutting through the trees. Probably a cat, he muttered. But we all knew, mountain lions don't sound human. Something moved ahead, fast. The beam hit it for half a second. Flesh like it had been torn from a man, stretched tight over a frame too big for bones. The snout twitched, ribs heaving. Blood dripped from its hands. Hands, not paws. Jake screamed before we even saw it leap. One flash of teeth. His throat was gone. The thing didn't run. It studied us, like it was choosing. Miller opened fire. 3 rounds. The creature staggered, then stood. Half its jaw missing, still breathing. We ran. Branches tore at us, something crashing through the trees behind. I turned once, its legs bent backward, sprinting on all fours, mouth gaping open in a sound I'll never forget. By the time we reached the ridge, only I was left. Blood all over the rocks. My radio was still on. They heard everything. They said when they came for me, they found only claw marks and a trail leading back into the hollow. No bodies, just howls. Getting closer every night. The last house still lit. It was Halloween night, and every porch light in Cold Hollow, Maine had gone dark hours ago. All except one. The old Riker house, sitting alone at the edge of the forest, glowed with a single flickering bulb. Nobody ever went there. Nobody was supposed to. But when my little sister vanished from our street, her plastic pumpkin dropped in the middle of the road, the trail of tiny footprints led straight to that house. I should have waited for help. I should have done anything else. The front door was open just an inch. Inside smelled like wet leaves and something coppersweet, like rust and meat. The candy bowl by the door was full of the same kind she loved. I whispered her name. Something whispered mine back. The floorboards groaned as I stepped inside. Shadows hung thick on the ceiling, swaying like something breathing up there. Then I heard it, the sound of plastic scraping wood, her candy bucket, moving on its own. It rolled slowly out from the kitchen, leaving a trail of red smears behind it. I called again. A giggle answered, her giggle, but it came from every corner of the room at once. Then, from the kitchen doorway, she walked out, wearing my face painted over her own in dripping, childish strokes of red and black. "Trick or treat," she said, voice split like two mouths talking over each other. I backed away, but every step made the bulb overhead flicker harder, slower, until it went out completely. In the dark, I heard skin stretch, bone pop, nails dragging across the floor. Then hands, small ones, grabbed my arm. When the light blinked back on, it wasn't her anymore. It was taller, her skin hanging loose over something that didn't fit right beneath it. Its eyes were holes. I ran. Out the door, across the street, through the night. I didn't stop until I saw other porch lights again. When I looked back, the Riker house was dark at last, bulbs shattered, windows empty. This morning, the police went there. They found no girl, no footprints, just a candy bucket by the doorway filled with teeth. And tonight, that same porch light is glowing again. The thing that crawled out of Dead Man's Creek. They say Dead Man's Creek got its name back in 1954 when a bus of miners went off the bridge. 43 bodies lost, never recovered. This Halloween, I went out there to film a short for my channel. Thought I'd make a fake cryptid investigation video. Just something spooky. But it wasn't fake. Not this time. The water was low, black with mud, the air heavy with rot. Every few seconds, something bubbled up, like the creek was breathing. My buddy Jake laughed. Maybe the ghosts are gassy. But when he stepped into the shallows, something grabbed his ankle. He screamed and went under. Not even a splash, just gone. The sound that came up from below was wet, gurgling, hungry. I reached in, pulling until the skin on my fingers tore, but Jake's flashlight rolled out of the water on its own. Still on. Then the creek started moving. Something massive shifted beneath the surface. Not swimming, crawling. The mud rose like it was lifting itself out of the ground. A shape formed, too long, too thin. When the water drained off its back, I saw bones. Dozens of them. Human bones fused into a body that never stopped growing. Its face, if you could call it that, was stretched skin nailed together with what looked like teeth. And it moved on all fours, but backwards, each limb bending the wrong way, joints cracking loud enough to echo through the trees. I ran. The flashlight cut out halfway up the hill, but I still heard it coming, crawling through the leaves, ribs snapping, dragging something heavy behind it. When I reached the truck, Jake was already there. Or I thought it was him. He was soaked, trembling. I shouted, "Get in!" He looked up at me, and his mouth opened, wider than it should. Water poured out. Now I'm watching the footage. It's all there. The creek, the movement, the hand pulling him under. And at the very end, before the screen goes black, you can see something crawl out of the water and look straight at the camera. It wasn't Jake, and if you drive past Dead Man's Creek tonight, you'll see footprints leading from the water to the road. Still wet, still human. The Wendigo watches from Minnesota's pines. The pines whispered that night. The kind of whisper that didn't come from wind or snow, but from something alive, something hungry. Eli hadn't meant to wander this far into the Minnesota backwoods, but the road froze behind him, and his GPS died hours ago. The air was bitter, the forest silent except for the crunch of his boots on ice. He kept glancing at the tree line, where something large moved between the trunks. At first, he thought it was a moose. Then he saw the shape again, too tall, too thin. The beam of his flashlight trembled as he caught a glimpse of it. A creature stood 20 yards away, ribs stretching beneath skin like frozen leather. Atop its gaunt frame sat the skull of a deer bleached white and glistening with frost. Giant antlers twisted upward like jagged branches scraping the night sky. Eli froze. His breath caught in his throat as the creature tilted its skull, sniffing the air. Its empty sockets faced him, black holes where eyes should be. And then it smiled. The wind stopped. The woods went dead still. He stumbled backward, nearly slipping on the ice. Behind him, something groaned a low, dragging sound like bone grinding on bone. The smell hit next. Rot and iron, a scent of something that had eaten too long ago, but never stopped starving. Eli ran. The pines blurred around him, branches tearing at his jacket, frost biting at his lungs. He didn't dare look back. Though he could hear it running now, those heavy, unnatural strides, claws cracking against frozen roots. When his flashlight flickered out, the forest went black. He could still hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears, and the breathing. Right behind him. He turned the camera on his phone, trembling, hoping to see the trail back. Instead, the lens caught a reflection antlers towering above, the deer skull glistening inches from his face. A thin, skeletal hand reached out from the dark and touched his shoulder. The phone dropped. The last thing it recorded was a screen that cut off halfway through, and the sound of crunching snow as something dragged him away. They say if you stand beneath those same pines long enough, you can still hear him screaming echoing through the frost, calling for help that will never come. Because the Wendigo still watches, and it's still hungry. They found his body, but his head was still smiling. The pines of northern Maine stood in a silent, frozen congregation, their branches heavy with a week-old snow. It was in that deep, white silence that Elias Maccabi, a hunter of 40 years, vanished. The search party, made up of grim-faced neighbors, found his trail easy to follow at first. Then the tracks changed. They went from the steady, purposeful stride of a man to a loping, erratic gait, as if he'd been running on all fours. They followed the bizarre trail to a small, blood-stained clearing. The air was unnaturally still and carried a foul, coppery sweetness, like old meat and spoiled marrow. There, propped against the scaly bark of a long-dead pine, was Elias's body. He was sitting up, his parka shredded, his rifle lying useless in the snow a few feet away. His hands were gone, chewed to ragged stumps at the wrists. His torso was a hollowed-out cavity, ribs picked clean and gleaming in the weak afternoon light. The snow around him was a churned-up horror of crimson and filth. A wave of nausea and primal terror swept through the men. But the worst of it, the detail that would forever haunt their dreams, was his head. It was untouched, perfectly preserved, and it was smiling. It wasn't a smile of peace or a death rictus. It was a wide, ecstatic, ear-to-ear grin, the lips stretched taut over his teeth, his eyes crinkled with what looked like pure, unadulterated joy. It was a smile that did not belong on the face of a man who had been eaten alive. One of the younger searchers, Tom, vomited into the snow. Old Man Haggerty, who had seen his share of woodshed horrors, simply stood frozen, his face ashen. "It's not possible," he whispered, his breath a ghost in the frigid air. As they watched, paralyzed by the ghastly scene, the smile seemed to twitch. The head, still attached by a shred of tendon and spine, tilted a fraction of an inch. The joyous, vacant eyes remained fixed on the darkening tree line. A low, guttural sound echoed from the deep woods, a sound that was neither animal nor human. It was a crackling, hungry noise that seemed to siphon the warmth from their very souls. It was the sound of something ancient and ravenous that was not yet done feeding. The smile on Elias's face widened imperceptibly, a silent, terrible welcome. The men didn't search for the source of the sound. They ran, because the most horrifying truth was now clear. They hadn't found a body. They had found a place setting, and the feast was just beginning. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Nightmare Zoo. And nightmarezoo.com is open for all your creepy cryptid horror merch needs. They heard growling. Then the screams began. It was supposed to be a quiet patrol. Rangers Owens, Vega, and Hart were checking trail cameras near the old logging road when the fog rolled in, thick and heavy, muffling every sound. The forest grew silent. Not even the crickets dared to sing. "Did you hear that?" Vega whispered. A low growl rumbled from somewhere in the mist. Owens froze, flashlight trembling. Then came another, closer, deeper, wet with hunger. The trees creaked as something massive moved through them. Hart aimed his rifle toward the sound. "Probably a bear," he muttered, but even he didn't believe it. Then something hit him, hard. He vanished into the fog with a crunch. The scream that followed wasn't human for long. Vega bolted. Owens chased after her, but the forest twisted in on itself. The trail gone, the trees wrong, the shadows alive. Every few seconds came another sound, the tearing of flesh, the snap of bones, then silence. He stumbled into a clearing and found Vega's flashlight, still on, still shaking in the dirt. Blood dripped from the trees above him, splattering on his shoulder. He looked up. Bodies. Dozens of them, hanging by their tendons, stripped clean. The fog pulsed red in the light. Then he heard breathing behind him. Owens turned and saw it. The creature stood nearly 9 feet tall, its ribs tearing through stretched skin, eyes like pits of darkness. Its mouth split open far too wide, lined with jagged, wet teeth. Its claws dripped with blood. He fired. Once. Twice. The beast didn't flinch. It stepped closer, its breath steaming, the smell of rot choking him. When it lunged, he didn't have time to scream. The next morning, the search team found the ranger's truck still running, lights on, doors open. The trail cameras were smashed. But one image remained, a shadow, massive and grinning, crouched behind them in the fog. No one goes near Black Hollow anymore. Locals say, if you listen on a windless night, you can still hear the growling. Right before the screams begin. The Pine Barrens incident, they sent us into the Barrens after sunset. 3 hunters gone missing, their camp still burning when rangers found it. I led the search and rescue unit. 6 of us, all armed, all thinking this was just another lost party. The woods were silent. No crickets, no wind, just the smell of wet pine and rot. We found the first body 20 minutes in. It was hanging 10 feet off the ground, ribs cracked outward like a split log. No gun, no eyes. Mendez gagged. Bear? But the claw marks were too wide, and the footprints were bare. We kept going, following the trail of drag marks through the mud. That's when we heard it, a sound like a tree snapping, followed by breathing that wasn't ours. Carter swept his flashlight left and froze. Two massive shapes in the fog, not bears, not human. One of them stepped forward. 7 feet tall, matted hair soaked in blood, face half hidden, but the mouth was visible. Teeth, blunt, human-like, but cracked and red. It carried something dangling from one hand, a leg. Before we could react, it charged. It didn't roar, it screamed. A sound so deep, it felt like it tore the air open. Carter's rifle jammed. The thing hit him like a truck, spine snapping so loud it echoed. Then came the second one. They moved together, fast, coordinated. One grabbed Mendez by the throat and slammed him into a tree so hard his head burst. Blood sprayed the flashlight lens. I fired point blank, hit it twice. It turned and looked straight at me. Half its face was gone, but it didn't stop. It grabbed me by the vest and threw me 10 feet into the brush. When I woke, I was alone. The trees were shaking, the smell of copper everywhere. Through the fog, I saw their shapes dragging bodies back toward the river. They didn't eat them. They were stacking them. I crawled away until dawn. The rescue team came for me the next day, found the others in pieces. They said it was a bear attack, but bears don't stack their food. And at night, I still hear the breathing. They went looking for the missing camper, but found a monster instead. It started like any other rescue mission. A teenager named Luke had gone missing near Black Hollow Forest, a place that locals swore was cursed. Park rangers Owens, Carter, and Vega set out just before sunset, their radios hissing in the growing static. By nightfall, the fog had swallowed everything. The trees pressed close, their branches like twisted ribs. "This forest feels wrong," Vega whispered. Owens ignored her until they found the first tent. It was shredded, the nylon soaked in blood. Inside lay a single boot, still warm. Then came the growl. It wasn't a wolf. It was deeper, wet, animalistic, layered with something that sounded almost human. Carter swung his flashlight around. Between the trees stood something massive, hunched, breathing, its fur slick with blood. It had hands, hands with claws, and the smell, iron and rot. The creature lunged. Carter didn't even scream, just vanished in a blur of red mist. Vega fired her rifle, the muzzle flash lighting up its face, a twisted mix of wolf and man, eyes black and glistening. It roared and tore into her before she could reload. Owens ran. Branches whipped his face, his boots slipping in mud. Behind him, he could hear the creature dragging bodies, chewing bones. He stumbled into a clearing moonlight, spilling over an ancient totem made of bones and human skulls. Around it were dozens of claw marks, and the air stank of death. He hid behind the totem, heart slamming, trying not to breathe. But then he heard footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate. The beast was close. He saw it step into the clearing, sniffing the air. Its chest rose and fell, steaming in the cold night. Then its head turned. It was looking straight at him. Owens fired point blank. The creature screamed, a sound that ripped through the night, but even with half its face missing, it didn't fall. It grinned, and when it lunged again, he saw what the locals had meant. This wasn't a werewolf. This was something worse. The next morning, the rescue team found only blood, torn uniforms, and a half-eaten radio. The forest was silent, except for one sound. A growl that came from deep within the mist, waiting for the next fool who wandered too far. Why are people disappearing here? The werewolf of Blackwater Ridge. They sent us up to Blackwater Ridge after 2 campers went missing. No calls, no signs. Just blood on a tent zipper and drag marks vanishing into pine needles. The air up there never feels right. heavy, metallic, like something breathing through the trees. By nightfall, our search team of 4 had found nothing except shredded tracks and the stink of wet fur. Then we heard it. Not a wolf, not a bear, something that stood. The first scream came from Jenkins. High, raw, then silence, followed by the sound of something chewing. We found him 20 yards off the trail, spine ripped out, head twisted backward. The ribs were crushed inward, as if something had squeezed until they burst. A claw mark gouged a tree nearly shoulder high. I fired my rifle. The muzzle flash lit a blur of matted fur and red eyes. It hit me like a truck. Teeth sank into my arm. I felt bone split, and it threw me like I was paper. Franklin's shotgun went off. A howl answered. The thing was massive. 9 feet maybe, fur slick with blood, hands like a man's, but ending in claws long enough to carve through bark. It moved too fast, too human. Franklin's chest opened with one swipe, ribs snapping like glass rods. Torres ran. The werewolf followed, silent, relentless. By the time I got up, all I heard was the wet tearing sound and the crunch of skull between teeth. I crawled back toward camp. My flashlight flickered on shredded tents, blood, and half a boot still steaming in the cold. I saw it again, crouched, feeding, head jerking like a feeding dog. It looked at me once. Not curiosity, hunger. I shot until the rifle clicked empty. It only tilted its head, blood dripping from its snout, then disappeared into the trees. Rescue teams found me the next morning, raving, my arm half gone. They said the others must have been taken by a bear. But when the wind howls through Blackwater Ridge, it sounds like a growl, deep, hungry, still waiting for the next group to come searching.